Welcome to Beyond the Coverage. I'm Chris Horner. This is the first rest day of the 2023 Vuelta a España. Now, we've had 9 fantastic days of racing. Been a little bit of chaos for some of the organization here at the Vuelta a España, but it's not all their fault because they've had incredibly bad weather here at the Vuelta a España in 2023 with that spectacular Stage 1, Stage 2 slippery ice rink. And then the latest news after yesterday's Stage 9, half the riders here at the Vuelta a España, or at least one of the big planes, flying over to the hotels to get themselves up to the next stage for Stage 10's individual time trial and today's rest day at the Vuelta a España. They didn't make it into their hotels till 3 a.m. last night because the plane got detoured because of bad weather. Luckily for us fans sitting on the Chesterfield, the first plane did make it, and that had all the guys that are really up there in the top 10 on the general classification who are going to be vying to put themselves in the race leader's red jersey here, possibly with Remco Evenepoel or someone from the top 10, or maybe the American, the second wearer of the race leader's red jersey in the last 10 years, Sepp Kuss. Maybe Sepp Kuss can hold on to that race leader's red jersey. Now, the guys over at NBC at Peacock, they don't remember who the last American was of the red jersey wearer or who won the Vuelta 10 years ago. So I put up both red jerseys up here to remind everybody at NBC and Peacock that I am the last guy to wear the race leader's red jersey at the Vuelta a España. And let me remind the guys at Peacock, not only did I wear it, but I won it 10 years ago in 2013. And on top of that, I am the oldest winner in the galaxy of any Grand Tour. So when we're talking about the commentators up there from Peacock, Christian Vandervelde, Bob Roll, and of course the directors there at Peacock, because I don't know whose fault it is for that memory lapse that they're having when they're talking about who the last U.S. rider was 10 years ago. But just to clarify it up, I put up 2 red jerseys up here for Peacock just in their honor so that they can remember clearly who the last guy was 10 years ago. Now, today's episode, what do I want to talk about? 5 teams I want to talk about, and I want to rate them here in the first 9 stages of the Vuelta a España in 2023. Got to rate Jumbo-Visma, got to rate Soudal Quick-Step, UAE Team Emirates have to be rated, Ineos, and of course Movistar, because those were my 5 big picks for guys and teams that are going to highlight this year's Vuelta a España. Then I want to rate the organizers too, and of course I want to talk a little bit about Sepp Kuss and what his options are going further into this Vuelta a España. Now, the first team I want to rate, Jumbo-Visma. Well, they have the race leader's jersey with Sepp Kuss. They won Stage 6 with Sepp Kuss, and they just got done winning 2 days ago, Stage 8, with Primož Roglič on that uphill finish where Remco Evenepoel didn't know that the breakaway had all been brought back together. Primož Roglič won coming out of the last 175 meters into the turn, but 125 going into the turn, led coming out with 75 meters to go and won that stage to give Jumbo-Visma 2 stage victories, plus the race leader's red jersey here. So in my book right now, Jumbo-Visma have an A rating. I mean, it's been fantastic. They had a great Stage 6 when they took the stage win with Sepp Kuss and put himself in the second on the general classification. It was the stage where Lenny Martinez from FDJ put himself in the race leader's red jersey. But Sepp Kuss did a great job of winning that stage. And when you look at the tactics from Jumbo-Visma on Stage 6 with 4 riders in that group, all 3 working hard there for Sepp Kuss, and then Sepp Kuss tactically was sitting back going up the last and final climb, letting everybody, all those knuckleheads, do the work for him, jumped across the gap, soloed into the finish, and won the stage. So I give them an A. Now, why don't I give them an A+? Well, we go back, of course, to the last sprinter stage that Soup won, Jeffrey Soup, with the beard and everything. When he won that stage, that was really their only mistake when Sepp Kuss was riding at the back a bit too much, caught up in the crash with 10.5 kilometers to go and no teammates waiting for him. That tactically, in my mind, was a massive mistake because even if Sepp Kuss is not your 1 and 2 leader on the team with Jumbo-Visma, because we know it's Primož Roglič and Jonas Vingegaard that are their outright leaders, but even though Sepp is not their 3rd leader, he's still strategically a massive benefit to have him there because Jonas Vingegaard, Primož Roglič are behind the most important rider, Remco Evenepoel. That looks like to be one of the strong favorites here in the Vuelta a España to win the whole thing. So they get an A, not an A+ for that one tactical mistake of not staying with Sepp Kuss. Now we'll go to my second team, Soudal Quick-Step. What's their rating? Well, Pseudo Quick-Step, I rate them a C because they've been absolutely miserable throughout this first 9-stage tactically. Now, I only give them a C instead of an F because Remco Evenepoel, man, do you have some form. I mean, it is spectacular form. Your stage win on stage 3 to put yourself into the race leader's red jersey. Guys at NBC Peacock, it's the red jersey next to me right here. But your tactics, your speed, your power that you did, not your tactics, but your speed and power to come up to the line and win stage 3 was brilliant. Coming over the top, it was a little bit disappointing that you can't get on the brakes a little bit faster, but maybe that's a 50-50 fault with the organizers and not taking into account the speed that Remco Evenepoel is doing. Or maybe 50% of that's Remco Evenepoel not slowing down soon enough, because everybody knows in the professional peloton, and especially Remco Evenepoel, who's won a ton of races throughout his early career here at all of 23 years of age, should know that there's a bunch of photographers and people beyond the finish line at any Grand Tour. So I'm going to put you a little bit at fault for that. Now, when it comes to the tactics for Pseudo Quick-Step, let's discuss them a little bit, because they have been catastrophically bad at just about every moment throughout this year's Vuelta a España, and especially on stage 6 when they let 40 guys go up the road, and one Sepp Kuss, who rides for Jumbo-Visma, who has Primož Roglič and Jonas Vingegaard, the Giro d'Italia winner and the Tour de France winner, each rider, and they let that 40 guys go up the road with Sepp Kuss, with not just Sepp Kuss in that group like Soler was from UAE Team Emirates, but Sepp Kuss with 3 teammates, which means they're going to ride full gas throughout that whole stage 6, which means Pseudo Quick-Step had to waste a ton of energy on stage 6. Now they're way behind the 8 ball after that stage finish, and should have possibly been even further behind after stage 6, but Movistar rode on the front like a bunch of knuckleheads, and of course Ineos, who, when I rate them, it's going to be bad. Ineos rode on the front for stage 6 too, when they don't even have anybody in this race racing for general classification. Okay, so Pseudo Quick-Step, they get a C, and it's basically only because of the form that Remco Evenepoel has and his teammate Matteo Cattaneo, who's riding so far above his pay grade, I imagine, that it's amazing he's still there so deep into the final of these last climbs. When we're talking about deep into stage 6, and he salvaged that 30-second deficit that Remco Evenepoel had on Primož Roglič and Jonas Vingegaard. Because if it wasn't for Matteo Cattaneo coming back and pulling from that 3-kilometer attack there from Primož Roglič, we're talking about Remco Evenepoel would be behind all 3 Jumbo-Visma riders right now here at the Vuelta a España. So Matteo Cattaneo, tip of the hat to you, because you have been something amazing. Now, give a little bit of a break to Pseudo Quick-Step, because they've had some sickness going through the team, and they've lost Baggioli, so they're down to just 7 riders here. So maybe this sickness is what's affecting Vervaeke, James Knox, and of course Jan Hertz, and that's why we don't see their 3 climbers at the front that often, and it's Matteo Cattaneo that's just delivering magnificently for Pseudo Quick-Step. So a C for Pseudo Quick-Step, and honestly, if you took a little bit of that form away from Remco Evenepoel, they'd have an F right now after 9 stages of racing at the Vuelta a España, because it's been amateur-style tactics from the whole team. Now, let's go to the third team, UAE Team Emirates. Can you believe it? These guys have not been knuckleheads throughout 9 days of racing here at the Vuelta a España, and even Soler. Mark Solerism. I might even have to take the ism off if you can still keep riding this intelligently. He put himself into that 40-man group on stage 6, rode intelligently, got dropped from Sepp Kuss and Lenny Martinez, but rode intelligently throughout the stage and didn't do any work, and let Jumbo-Visma and FDJ ride on that stage 6. Realistically, when I start dissecting the tactics from UAE Team Emirates, the only real mistake that I've seen from that team is on stage 3. Remember when I call them knuckleheads on stage 3? When they had Jay Vine riding on the front there, pulling Jumbo-Visma and Pseudo Quick-Step up the last and final climb, and then having Ayuso attack for like 100 meters, maybe 75, before Jonas Vingegaard and Sepp Kuss brought him back, and then attacked them left and right, and of course went on to pull all the way up the climb, Remco Evenepoel, who won that stage. So they have one stage, stage 3, UAE Team Emirates, where you guys were knuckleheads. But other than that, stage 3, UAE Team Emirates have looked pretty magical. And let me remind you guys, Jay Vine has crashed out of this year's Vuelta a España, but they still have 3 guys in the top 10. And Soler, I'm not even going to call him the ism, just Marc Soler is sitting second on the general classification. And after tomorrow's individual time trial, he might just beat Sepp Kuss and put himself into the race leader's red jersey here. Peacock, red jersey, right side, left side. Remember, it was Chris Horner 10 years ago that wore the race leader's red jersey and won the Vuelta a España. And, of course, is the oldest rider in the galaxy by almost 6 years of age to win a Grand Tour. So, Peacock, keep that in mind. Don't forget, tomorrow the race starts again. Maybe Sepp Kuss is wearing the race leader's red jersey. And you don't have to remind the fans that it was 10 years ago when the last U.S. wearer wore the red jersey at the Vuelta a España. You could just say it was Chris Horner right here. Left, left, right. Anyways, let's get into the next team because UAE team members, like I said, A rating. Only thing wrong with them is on stage 3. They've been spectacular. And like I said, might be in the race leader's red jersey after tomorrow's individual time trial. Marc Soler might be there and might lose that ism if he can keep racing as intelligently as he has throughout this first 9 stages here at the Vuelta a España. Now the next team. The next team I'm going to go is Team Ineos. That started here at the Vuelta a España as my 4th favorite team. Geraint Thomas and our Insman. Our Insman, of course, crashed out, but he wasn't really that high up on the general classification. It had gotten dropped on most of the mountain stages before he crashed out, but was still sitting up there where he could be a threat, possibly tactically later, but I didn't see it happening. Geraint Thomas arrived in this year's Vuelta a España under form. We've seen his interview before the Vuelta a España where he's talking about, hey, maybe getting just 2nd or 3rd on the general classification is not so important. I should be going for stage victories. That's ridiculous in my book. If you can be at the front racing with the best riders in the world at a Grand Tour, that's the holy grail of bike racing. I would never give up racing with the top riders in the world at a Grand Tour to just sit back and go gruppetto multiple days just so I can win a stage sometime later if I could be with the best in the world. So Geraint Thomas and Team Ineos, I'm giving an F rating here. Like, they have been spectacularly bad. They've put Filippo Ganna on the front throughout the finish of these stages to look after Geraint Thomas, wrecking the legs there, burning us some energy up from Filippo Ganna when he could be sending up the road going for GC stages. It was Geraint Thomas' words, not mine, that said winning stages was pretty important and maybe better than racing high up on the general classification. So if it's good for Geraint Thomas to say that before the Vuelta a España starts, then it's probably good for Filippo Ganna to get the green light to just race his own Vuelta a España and try to win a stage here. And now, of course, with our Insman out and with Geraint Thomas down on the general classification, we're going to see stage opportunities for Filippo Ganna, possibly to be able to win here at the individual time trial tomorrow and in the later stages to come. But Ineos as a whole have been an F, and especially when I take you guys back to that stage 6, when 40 riders went up the front group and Ineos is riding on the front with Soudal Quickstep's team from Remco Evenepoel when they have nobody here to race for general classification. And by that stage, at stage 6, Geraint Thomas shouldn't have known with his experience of 37 years of age. Let me remind you guys, he went 2nd at the Giro d'Italia, was wearing the pink race leader's jersey there at the Giro, and could have possibly been the 2nd oldest rider in the galaxy to win a Grand Tour if it wasn't for one spectacular individual time trial on the penultimate stage from Primož Roglič that dislodged Geraint Thomas out of the pink jersey and then, of course, kept my record further intact of being the oldest rider in the galaxy. But Ineos have failed throughout the first 9 stages here, and it's not just been because of bad luck and crashes throughout this first 9 stages here, although that's helped contributed to it. Tactically, they've been a nightmare throughout the race, so they get an F. Now, the 5th and last final team, Movistar, that I want to rate. They started this year 5th on my ratings in terms of importance of teams, but of course they've moved up to 4th over Ineos after today's rest day here at the Vuelta a España. So now Movistar, how have they raced? Well, I didn't like that stage 6 tactic of riding with Remco Evenepoel when they had riders in the front group of 40. I don't think you ever ride with Remco Evenepoel. You have to make their whole Soudal Quickstep team do a lot of work. But I'm still going to give them a solid rating here for Movistar because Moss has been up there. And I'm going to give them a B or B+. Not quite an A because of one reason and one reason only, the main one anyways, is Enric Mas. His descending skills have looked horrendous. So when you see him coming off the back, going down the descents on these mountain stages, all I'm thinking when I'm sitting on the Chesterfield, how much longer can Enric Mas keep going off the back on these twisty descents and still give himself back up there to the front GC guys and battle for the win if he has no teammates around him up in that front group to help bring the gap back after the descent? You got to imagine that Enric Mas is going to lose some energy out of the legs and of course might just get popped off the back and not be able to close it on one of these descents between the mountain climbs when we're talking about the big mountains that are still to come in the second weeks here of the Vuelta a España and the third week, of course. So Movistar, they get a B plus, maybe even a B, just because Enric Mas' descending skills have been bad. That stage 6 riding on the front with Pseudo Quickstep wasn't very intelligent. I'll give them a half good rating for starting the final climbs in the front and bringing Enric Mas up to the front of the peloton to keep him in good position to start going up the climb, but then he's losing all of his teammates going down a descent and, like I said, coming off the back. Now, the race leader organization, what do they get? Well, they've had some bad weather. It's been epically bad. If I would have just rated after stage 1, I said they were an F. But when you look at how bad the weather's been, even stage 1 now, I'm starting to realize that the storm was pretty bad. Maybe they wouldn't have been in the complete dark, but if you'd moved it another 30 minutes earlier, then of course they would have had more light, and teams like Jumbo-Visma and of course Pseudo Quickstep wouldn't have been finishing in the dark on that stage 1. Stage 2, there's nothing you can do about that. You can't predict it. It's slippery. It's nasty. They cut the stage a little bit shorter. Good job. Yesterday, stage 9, they cut off 2K of the final climb. I kind of wonder if they could have done that last 2K, but of course for the safety of the riders, I'm going to sit up here and say it was okay. But sometimes keep in mind these epic stages where it's rainy, it's cold, it's storming, it's snowy out, and it's a little bit difficult situation. Those are stories that always you remember for the rest of your life. So sometimes it's kind of nice to have a few of these epic stages. And I think yesterday, stage 9 would have been a little dangerous, possibly through a few of the corners, but it looked like the organizers had that stuff taken care of, and it would have been nice if they'd gone to the finish. But okay, for safety reasons for the team, I'm going to go ahead and say it was all right just to finish 2 kilometers plus 50 meters before the line for the GC guys. But it does take a little bit of the excitement out of the race. Either way, weather-wise, you can't blame the organizers too much. So I'm still going to give the organizers a C plus B minus on their rating because the weather has been ferocious here, and there's nothing they could do about the plane. If the plane takes off and can't land and the riders got to arrive at 3 a.m., that's just the way it is. It's called Mother Nature. Life isn't fair, so get over it. Now, one last story. Sepp Kuss. What's Sepp Kuss' options after the individual time trial? Well, if he blazes it and keeps the race leader's red jersey, it makes it easy. Jumbo-Visma know he has become their 3rd race leader here at the Vuelta a España, and he has to follow Remco Evenepoel for as long as he possibly can up the next mountain stages. What's the possibility that he loses the race leader's red jersey to either Soler or Remco Evenepoel? And let's say that happens. Well, keep in mind, Sepp, that you have 3 guys that can climb these last mountain stages. So Remco Evenepoel has tactically made mistakes all over the place. Stage 6, and then of course every stage thereafter, basically. So Sepp, if you lose the race leader's red jersey, don't get too depressed, man. You have options when we get in these next mountain stages to tactically, if Remco Evenepoel makes mistakes, which we know he will, you might be the rider that he lets go up the road again, even after stage 6. If you can get up the road, you might put yourself back into the race leader's red jersey and be the 2nd American in 10 years to wear the race leader's red jersey here and win the Vuelta a España when it's all said and done. And join me, Chris Horner, NBC Peacock, in case you've forgotten. Jersey on the right, jersey on the left for Peacock's Bob Roll and Christian Vandervelde. Now you'll remember a little bit more clear. You won't just have to say the last 10 years since American wore the race leader's red jersey here, other than Sepp Kuss and the last American winner. So, Sepp Kuss, keep your head about you. Man, you raced fantastically yesterday in the crosswinds, never missing the split, always in perfect position, and you were great going up the final climb. So, stay motivated, stay focused. Good luck becoming the 2nd Grand Tour winner of the U.S. right here for Sepp Kuss. Like and subscribe. I'll see you guys again for stage 10 of the Butterfly Effect.